and welcome to the introductory video to the website indexesiq.com, which is an educational website for long-term index investing. In this introductory video, I would like to give you a brief overview over the indexes derivative strategies pane of the website, which is a toolkit to create, analyze, and backtest index derivatives over time. Now, on the left-hand side here, you see different derivative strategies that are grouped into the four categories: capital protection, yield enhancement, participation, and leverage. Now you can select some of these strategies, and the payoff of this derivative strategy will be shown on the right-hand side. Now, there are different plotting functions that you can use. For example, you can plot the payoff, the profit, the return in percent, but you can also look at the risk profile. So this is a simulation of the value at risk in either dollar terms or in percentage terms, and you can look at the degree of leverage of this product. Now down here, you have a time machine function where you can look at all these plots over time from issuance till maturity of the product. That's quite interesting, for example, when you look at the probability distribution of these products. You can see that, for example, the capital protection certificate has this discrete probability spike down here, which is basically the probability of ending up at the plateau down here. And some of them have even more interesting probability distributions. For example, the capital protected certificate with cap has another discrete probability spike up here, which is the cap level. Or you go into leverage products, for example, the spread warrant call, which is a typical standard derivative. It has a very interesting feature because you see, again, it has the floor and the cap level, which are discrete probability spikes. But then if you look at the same probability distribution in percentage terms, you see the degree of leverage here, right? This is the blue line, is the light blue line is the probability distribution of the underlying, and the dark blue line is the probability distribution of percentage returns of the derivative, which shows the extreme degree of leverage here. But let's take a simple example. Let's take the capital protected certificate, and I can take a drill down into this one by clicking on select template. Now, here I have the different parameters of this product that I can play with. So here I have the input parameters. I can select the underlying, the product lifetime, and the so-called participation level, which is basically showing me to what degree I'm participating in the upside. Now, you might say I want to participate as much as possible, but be aware there's a trade-off between the participation and the capital protection level here, right? So the higher I choose the participation level, the lower the capital protection level will be. So that's the typical trade-off between upside potential and downside protection. Now, for each structured product, there is a replication strategy or replicating portfolio, which you see in this pane here. So each product or each product strategy is replicated by replicating positions. So this is the capital protected certificate is replicated by a zero bond and a long call. And it has replication rules to ensure that these two positions work well together. And basically how it works is that the zero bond has to pay the strike level of the call option at issuance, at maturity, and this is ensured down here. Another thing is that you can define product parameters. For example, here you see the participation defined and the range that it can have, and that's exactly the parameter that appears on the front page here. So this participation parameter is user defined, and it's defined in this line here. Now, this structuring pane is for expert users. So if you want to create your own product templates, I would advise you to read the product manual on our website, which details these functions in great detail. And you can add and delete different components of the product and so on. But that's really for expert users. Let's go back to some simple examples. So I created this capital protected certificate. Now I can go back to the main menu and add a second product here. For example, I can add a capital protected note which has a knockout. So let's add that to the portfolio. And again, I can play around with the parameters. I can play around with a knockout level here. And now I have two products and I can switch between them. So I can look at the previous one. I can look at this one. And the most interesting thing is I can backtest them, and I can backtest them to compare them how they would perform over time. Now, the most interesting thing is to do long-term backtesting over longer periods of time, but that requires a periodic rollover of these products, because typically these structured products have a lifetime of 1 or 2 years. If you want to do a 20-year backtest, then at each maturity you need to roll over into a new product that is created using these product rules, where all the strike levels and barrier levels and so on are reset to the appropriate level. Let's do that here. I click on the backtesting function and I select all products. So I have 2 products in the portfolio. And by the way, they were both products on the DAX. Now it's a 2-year backtest, but I want a longer period. So let's choose 20 years and I click backtest. And now it simulates this strategy, including a rollover of each product into a new product every year. So in 20 years, I would expect to have 20 rollovers. And we see that here. So here's the time scale, and each of this blue line is the rollover of the strategy. Now here we see both strategies backtested 20 years of time with 20 rollovers. You see the underlying was the DAX, which has performed better here. But bear in mind, these were capital protected products. So obviously you would expect that they might not have the same upside, but they might have lower risk. Now we see that one of these products that had the upside knockout level had 2 barrier hits during the 20 years, one here, one here. Now it's interesting to compare the risk and return profile. So I can click on this chart here and we see, yes, on the y-axis, the return, the x-axis, the average volatility. And yes, of course, the underlying benchmark, the DAX, had a higher average return, but it had also much higher risk, right? So both of these capital protected certificates have significantly reduced the risk profile. Now, please bear in mind that backtested returns are no indication for future returns. And in this video, we are not providing investment advice. We are just showcasing the toolkit that you can use to derive some interesting insights. You can close the backtesting window here and go back to the menu and choose some other interesting products. I hope this introductory video was useful. Thank you for watching and goodbye.